Biodiversity reinforces every living organism on the planet we inhabit. It has come to represent and refer to the variety of biological life in all its forms, from the genetic composition of plants and animals to the diversity of the ecosystems which they populate. Every culture relies on biodiversity in their daily lives, oftentimes in ways that are not always obvious and certainly not appreciated. The health of our planet ultimately depends upon the byproducts and services provided by our ecosystems and are requisite for sustainable life and constructive livelihoods. The loss of biodiversity can have significant direct human health impacts if ecosystems are no longer viable or able to meet the needs of society. The magnitude and consequences of biodiversity loss and decline are substantial and anthropogenically influenced. Among the more noteworthy of consequences when measuring the human impact on biodiversity is the estimated number of species lost. While scientific experts continue to express dramatically varying estimates at the rate of species disappearance, most will contend that the Earth is currently in the midst of its sixth mass extinction. Researchers have projected 600 plant species have been eliminated in the past 250 years due to anthropogenic intervention, and an estimated 75% of all species that currently inhabit the Earth will have gone extinct within the next 500 years. Additionally, biodiversity loss and damaged ecosystems have produced an abundance of global public health risks. Biodiversity plays a key role in maintaining food security, human nutrition, and dietary quality through its influence on global livestock and agricultural goods. As ecosystems become increasingly threatened, so too do the world's food supplies. The Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations reported that 26% of species relevant to the supply of food and agriculture are at risk for extinction, and nearly one-third of the world's fish stocks are over-harvested. The Convention on Biological Diversity has created the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in conjunction with and agreed upon by 193 members of the United Nations. The plan was developed as a framework to combat the societal and political challenges facing global communities. Biodiversity and loss of ecosystems were notably highlighted within the agenda, as were suggested policies and objectives to address such issues. A small sample of the goals outlined in the agenda which pertain to biodiversity include the conservation and restoration of the Earth's oceans, seas, and marine resources. These efforts are essential for ecological development and help prevent and drastically reduce marine pollution, acidification, and eutrophication. Whereas increased management and regulation of the marine and coastal ecologies will strengthen the ecosystems and reduce overharvesting and illegal and unregulated fishing practices, terrestrial ecosystems must also be protected and restored to reduce deforestation and land degradation through sustainable management practices. Increased global afforestation and reintroduction of threatened species will help halt and prevent further extinctions, while urgent actions have also been introduced to enact stiffer penalties against poachers and illegal wildlife trackers. As loss of biodiversity becomes increasingly concerning and convoluted to modern societies, so too do the methods to combat the complexities of the fractured ecosystems. Alternative approaches have been discussed and developed and have been met with both mixed reviews and varying degrees of success. Three of those methods include the creation of protected areas, target-based ecological compensation, and enterprise-based conservation. One of the more traditional responses, and popular amongst conservation groups and government agencies, is the creation of protected areas that generally prohibit many forms of human encroachment and use of its resources. Research has shown that areas protected by government entities have greatly reduced loss of natural habitats to deforestation and have regenerated species propagation. However, it has been shown that this alternative can have devastating socioeconomic impacts on populations which have been forcibly displaced from their lands. These sites are often of great cultural significance. This type of expatriation can create a paradox for conservationists, as local support is typically essential for conservational methods to succeed. Target-based ecological compensation is another alternative approach recently developed by the Science for Nature and People Partnership. As ecological habitats continue to be lost to global urbanization and deforestation, target-based ecological compensation suggests a biodiversity offsetting where habitats lost are counterbalanced by the creation of new habitats equal to the size and diversity of the site which was destroyed. This is said to benefit all parties involved, as there is no net loss in the objective. This could conceivably be an ideal approach if conservationists were content with the status quo. However, no net loss typically equates to no net gain as well, which begs the obvious question: why not construct on the newly proposed offsetting site instead of destroying an already viable existing site? A final alternative approach, enterprise-based conservation, provides financial incentives to participants of designated protected areas through activities such as ecotourism and the sale of locally produced goods. These enterprises generate income and offer social benefits in exchange for the discontinuance of unsustainable activities which threaten biodiversity. This form of programming assumes financial income would create an incentive for the participants to support conservation projects and the management of natural resources. While the approach has garnished modest forms of success, many of the member communities suffer from a scarcity of goods or products of value to be sold. Consequently, communities which are able to generate financial gains may not always adhere to the guidelines and instead adopt additional unsustainable resource practices. While each alternative approach has displayed promise and produced positive outcomes, they have not been consistent and are not always met with general approval. The One Health Initiative, established in 2009, is a collaborative and transdisciplinary approach which works at the local, regional, national, and global levels to achieve optimal health and well-being outcomes. This initiative recognizes the interconnections between people, animals, plants, and our shared communities. It has the capabilities to incorporate the aforementioned methods to attain the most productive results while also introducing a variety of interdisciplinary collaborations and partnerships. The One Health Initiative clearly focuses on consequences, responses, and actions at the animal-human ecosystem interface. Today's health problems are frequently complex, transboundary, multifactorial, and across species lines, and if approached from a purely medical, veterinary, or ecological standpoint, it is highly likely that sustainable mitigation strategies can be achieved.